Yeah.
Yep.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening, whatever time doesn't matter because that's the beauty of podcasting. Welcome into the Finstock Sports Network's Touchdown in Paradise, the only college football on this network here. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm Justin.
I'm Russ.
I'm Pete.
I'm Joe.
And haven't we a doozy weekend of college football this past weekend? What do you think, guys?
Dude, I mean, yeah. Tale of defense, I feel like, that Georgia-Texas game did not go how I kind of thought it was going to go after watching Texas all season. But I'm kind of glad it went that way because I thought Georgia was good, and I thought Georgia should have beat Bama. So, yeah, but a crazy weekend, man. It was a good weekend.
Yeah, in that game, Carson Beck had 3 interceptions and no touchdowns. Yeah. Trevor Etienne was doing all the work on the ground, 87 yards, 3 touchdowns. Quinn Ewers had 2 scores and a pick with 211 yards to go through with it. But I want to mention the really interesting thing that happened there in the third quarter. The controversial call happens when Texas got a pick off of Carson Beck, They got a pick off of Carson Beck in the third quarter, and they got down to about the 5 or the 10, but there was a flag thrown for defensive pass interference. On the replay, both guys were arm fighting pretty much equally. And all of a sudden, Texas creates Bottlegate 2.0 down there in Austin. The refs changed the call afterwards. And I want to hear from Russ first on this. What was your reaction?
I don't know, Justin. I don't know what to say. Fans are idiots. People get a little too involved. And, I kind of go back like you kind of go back to long time ago, the Malice in the Palace, where, Ron Artest goes into the stands and basically ruins his career because fans get a little too into it. Or recently with the Dodgers fans throwing shit at, don't get me wrong, Profar was talking shit, but like the Dodgers fans throwing, as what he said was ankle monitors at them and batteries. I think fans just get a little too involved and it ruins the experience, and you saw in the Dodgers-Padres series that paused the game for about like 15 minutes. And in this case, this paused the game for a while too. So I think fans need to take a step back, stop throwing shit on the field. Kind of ruins the experience for everybody else.
Joe, I want to hear from you too on this. Does this set a bad precedent for if the fans don't get what they want, they'll throw shit on the field and then the call will change?
Ultimately, it doesn't look good for college football, nor does it look for the University of Texas. It's I agree with Russ 100%. You have to uphold yourself to a certain standard as a fan, that you shouldn't be throwing stuff on the field. You shouldn't be endangering athletes that now get paid, but, before didn't. It's careless and reckless, and it's in a way, it's kind of just how the world is right now. You don't get what you want and you're going to throw a fit about it. But ultimately, I think it was a good change call because, it wasn't defensive pass interference. And that play, ultimately, hindsight being 2020, didn't really change the game a whole lot because Georgia dominated that game from start to finish. It still could have impacted the game because, again, they took a massive pick down to the 10, 20-yard line that could have led to a big score, and I believe it did. And it just it just doesn't look good. But I do think it was a good reversal. If you make a mistake as a ref, you can pick it up. That's the thing. You can pick it up. But I think in the manner in which it took place was incorrect.
And Pete, Kirby, after the game, said, "No one gave us a chance. Your whole network doubted us," talking about ESPN. "No one believed in us. They tried to rob us with calls in this place. These guys are so resilient." When you heard this, do you feel like Georgia was called unequally to Texas?
I think coaches come up with whatever narrative they can to kind of fit how things happen. I thought it was an okay called game. I mean, that overturn call, the way they did it, just like what happened in that Miami Virginia game, I didn't agree with. Except this time, I do think I agree with you guys. The call was probably correct. So, the way they did it, not great. Texas fans being little crybaby son of a guns, kind of like Sark can be sometimes. Maybe the fans embody him. Yeah, they got their way, not the way to go about it. I don't think Georgia got railroaded at all on major calls. I mean, Georgia dominated. This is what Georgia should have done against Alabama. And, Kirby's going to come out and say whatever he can to get his team fired up. Hey, we went in there, we beat them, and the refs cheated us. We should have scored another 2 touchdowns, which they should have. They should have beat them by a bigger margin anyways. I'm just very impressed with Georgia. And ever since that basically first quarter and a half against Alabama, Georgia's been pretty damn dominant. And I don't know if anyone could beat them right now. I mean, we'll get to Oregon and other things later, which I think Georgia's probably the best team in college football right now. And they really, granted, Ewers missed some throws, some open guys. He was missing open guys. But to me, eye test, Georgia was better.
Flat out, I agree. The call was just handled incorrectly by the refs. Don't throw the flag. Just let it play out. And
exactly. Why preempt it? Just let it happen and then, review it or whatever.
Right. And at the same time, I feel like Georgia is allergic to teams named Alabama and nobody else. It just seems that way under Kirby. Yeah, anybody want to dispute that?
And I think Alabama is the opposite of allergic against Georgia.
They're allergic to the state of Tennessee. We're going to get into that right now. There's something in the water up there in Tennessee, the Volunteer State. The goalposts. That's what's in the water because Bama is now 0-2 in the state of Tennessee this season after an upset loss at UT. Nico Iamaleava crushing it. I'm crushing it too with that name. 194 yards, a touchdown and a pick. But this guy's not talked about enough. Dylan Sampson, the running back, 139 yards on the ground and 2 scores. Jalen Milroe, 239 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks, including the game-sealing one at the very end when they had a chance to go win it. And then Ryan Williams, the young 17-year-old, dominating the game. 8 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. Once again, the fans storm the field. They light up their cigars, or they try to because they don't know how to smoke. And once again, they take down the goalposts as they did in 2022. Joe, tell me about the Vols. Are they back in the thick of it?
Well, I think they're most certainly in the thick of it. You beat a ranked opponent like you do, you're going to be rated, especially if you're in the SEC. But I think, again, it was more Alabama losing that game than Tennessee winning it. For 4 quarters, Tennessee couldn't move the ball. And, their quarterback got banged up in the first quarter. Alabama had many chances to capitalize, and they just didn't. It's the one time that, I can recall lately from a Kalen DeBoer offense that just stalls out. I mean, maybe the national championship, they didn't really perform at their full potential, but this is the first game I remember that this offense just couldn't move the ball. And I guess that's a testament to Tennessee's defense. So to answer your question, Justin, their defense, I guess, is championship level, and they should be in that conversation, but their offense is still wanting massively.
And Pete, to start the year, Tennessee was scoring 70 points a game. Granted, they weren't playing SEC competition in the beginning of the year, but what do they need to do to get back to the offense that was so potent that we saw the early part?
Yeah, I think this is it's definitely a rivalry game, right? I mean, they're not the biggest of, they're not like, Auburn, Alabama, but this is a huge rivalry game. And I definitely could tell early the offense was either not in sync or Nico wasn't making plays. I mean, that pick in the red zone when he gets hit and still throws it, You can't do that, dude. Like in a game that's like almost no points are scored, you're in field goal range. You can't get hit and throw a pick like that. I just think it took him a little bit to kind of find his footing. The Alabama defense was pretty damn good. Same kind of thing they did against Georgia, forcing turnovers, keeping the score low against Georgia early on, the first quarter and a half. But I think as long as Tennessee kind of can get back to not turning it over, and then playing like they did in the second half or the fourth quarter, all four quarters, I think they'll be good. Alabama's like this to me. It's like they look brilliant, Jalen Milroe, Heisman God, and then the next week they just look down. It's like very up and down, and that might just because Saban's not there and doesn't have the consistency going with it. And maybe DeBoer's trying to figure it out with all these guys he didn't recruit. But definitely very up and down. And I just don't know, especially now. I mean, they got 2 losses, and they're not going to make the playoff, right? Like, they're not even going to make the SEC title game, maybe. So if they don't do that, they're not going to make the playoff, right? So I don't know. I think Tennessee just has to kind of get back to slinging it, but not turning it over.
Well, that's an interesting point, Russ. I want to hear from you now. What's wrong with Alabama, and if they win out, can they make the playoff?
I mean, if you win out, yes. I mean, their defense isn't looking that great. Milroe, obviously, Pete alluded at that big, you get the stop at that big pick in the red zone that could have changed the game. And I think they're trying to figure stuff out. DeBoer's first year with the program. On the other side with Tennessee, it's not like that offense is very potent. So, I mean, it's not – put up 70 points. 70 points. Who were they playing? No one. So, I mean, that offense is very potent. So, I mean, that was a big win for them because they don't have a lot of, like, big ranked wins. That Oklahoma game looks really bad now. So, it was a big win for them. They got A&M at the end of the year. But, I mean, I think they're working out kinks, but Milroe's definitely taken a step back in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
And don't forget, they've got LSU in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they look like the team that nobody wants to play right now, by the way. It's going to be in Death Valley. So we've got a lot of good college football still left in the season. We're about at the midway point here. And with that, guess who's back on top? The Oregon Ducks ranked number 1 for the first time in 12 years after a 35-0 road win over Purdue, which means they did not cover last week. So I lost there. Dylan Gabriel, 290 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Jordan James continues running everybody over. Not named Ashton Jeanty, of course. Ashton Jeanty's running absolutely everybody over. Jordan James at 50 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. This was the first game the Ducks have played this year outside the state of Oregon. So that is notable because they do have road games coming up at Michigan and Wisconsin. But is it safe to say that Oregon's had the most relaxed travel schedule of the Big Ten so far, Pete?
I mean, yeah. The main reason I picked them to beat Ohio State was because Ohio State hadn't really played anyone, but also was at home. So if they travel to Columbus and play that game, I think it goes a little different, So they definitely have good on them for winning these games. I mean, you need to still win the games. Doesn't matter where you're home or away. But they definitely had the easiest schedule. What do they got coming up here? They're going to be at Michigan, at home against Illinois, so another damn home game, but at Michigan and then at Wisconsin. So really, I mean, Michigan's not ranked, Wisconsin's not ranked. They might have the easiest schedule in college football besides one game against, a highly ranked Ohio State. So, yeah, I mean, good for them. Great schedule. They definitely have the chance to continue out to be number 1. I do think if Georgia continues to dominate, I think they maybe jump Oregon to be number 1, even if Oregon ends up undefeated. But they definitely had the easiest schedule, man. I mean, and Purdue sucks. Notre Dame beat the shit out of them. So, yeah, I mean, good win for them. Definitely after a pretty enormous week at home. So I could see why maybe they didn't cover. They were like, oh, let's just go out and get the win, whatever, move on. But, yeah, they definitely had it the easiest. But that's not going to bode well for them. Depending when they do finally have a road game, if they do in the playoff, or if they have a neutral site game. I think that doesn't necessarily bode that well.
No, Russ, seeing how Oregon has played so far and seeing the teams they played so far, their best ranked win right now Of course, it's Ohio State, but then Boise State would be the next best win, I would think. So where do you see the Ducks ending up this season? Do you see them staying at number one, or do you feel like they're going to fall? Somebody's going to jump them?
I don't know. I think just win the conference this year is so weird. Yeah, just get 1 through 4, get that first round bye. It's not like you're playing in the BCS anymore, or even the 4. Just get that 1 through 4, get the bye. And I'm gonna fact check you a little bit, Justin, because you said Oregon didn't cover. Well, it was you called Purdue to cover.
That's what I said. I said Purdue was going to cover. They did not.
Yeah, but Oregon, we're all saying Oregon didn't cover. Oregon covered. They won 35-0. So guys, like,
My bad. Gotcha.
both you guys, they did cover. But I mean, I don't know how much 1 through 4 really matters, especially when you're going to be playing neutral site games. What does it really matter? I mean, I could see them maybe getting one more loss on their marker in a Big Ten title game, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Joe, how about you? Your thoughts on the Ducks?
I mean, schedule is lacking a bit, but again, that team has been in big moments year in, year out. They have a tough matchup this week against Illinois. You can't write that off, even though it is in Oregon.
Cannot sleep on this Illinois team.
They run the ball, or Illinois runs the ball. So, if they can stop that, then they're good, but Illinois is a physical team. Not saying Oregon's not going to beat them, which they definitely will. But in the question of are they going to be first for the rest of the season, I think someone's going to jump them eventually. Georgia plays too many good teams. Tennessee plays some really good teams. LSU, they'll get jumped eventually, just because I think after this Illinois game, they don't play really anyone. They play Michigan, who's unranked, and they play Wisconsin, which really haven't been good for a couple of years. So I think Oregon top 4, and then go from there when the tournament happens.
I mean, Georgia should be ranked number 1 right now. I feel like it should be Oregon, but that's besides the point.
You guys have really changed your tune. Like last couple of years.
I believed in
the SEC gets all. I'm like, and now, SEC gets 2 because it's the SEC, and now it's like, well, Georgia really be 1.
I'm changing my tune because Oregon's only played Ohio State. Georgia just beat.
They play better competition. That's what you don't get, and they bring money. You're the money man, Pete. You should know this.
You're damn right.
There we go. All right, back on top. Pete's the money man. We just talked about Illinois, some notable games around the league. For the first time since 2009, they beat Michigan, albeit this Michigan team is not good, as we see. So that win Texas had over them doesn't look great anymore. Texas really doesn't have a signature win now that Oklahoma is in the gutter. But credit to the Illini. They led wire to wire with those awesome uniforms with the fake leather helmets, and then the old style, like celebrating 100 years of football at Illinois or something like that. I know I'm so disrespecting somebody who was very important in Illini history, and I do apologize. I didn't do my research on that. But it was a 21-7 win. Luke Altmaier seems like he can play. Best quarterback they've had in a long time there in Illinois. How about the Big 12, guys? The Big 12 leaders, BYU and Iowa State, escaped with identical scores. BYU over Oklahoma State, Iowa State over UCF. Did you guys see either of those games?
Did not, except for the highlight of BYU. Wasn't it in overtime?
No, it was the last second pretty much. Oklahoma State had just gone ahead, and then BYU had about under a minute to go, and they just threw a couple passes, got right into field goal range to tie it or something, and then instead, Jake Retzloff went for it all, hit his guy, touchdown, and Oklahoma State pretty much didn't have any alibi for it.
Well,
I saw photos of the game and just the setting of the game, immaculate.
You think
that's about it?
You think BYU's got a nice stadium for football? Go watch a BYU baseball game, and that is the best background you've ever seen in your life. It is gorgeous. Yeah. And Luke Altmaier might be the best quarterback in the state of Illinois since Sid Luckman for the Bears.
That's interesting.
Because
The
Chicago hasn't had a lot
the
of great
whole state of
quarterbacks.
Illinois, interesting.
I haven't had a lot of great quarterbacks in Illinois.
Yeah. No love for Caleb right now?
He's a rookie.
I mean,
All right.
Tony Romo went to Eastern Illinois, dude. Like, come on, brother.
Jimmy Garoppolo, too.
Yeah, Jimmy G, too.
That's right. And then looking at the Iowa State win, my God, if I just wanted to flip a table and say, that's it, I'm done with Gus Malzahn. We had this game in the bag the whole time, and he decides to go conservative when we could have beat a top 10 team on the road for only the second time in school history. But I'm just convinced that he chose to lose the game. He chooses to lose these big games, and you can't convince me otherwise. You had the chance to go for a first down. No, you don't. No, you play conservative and you trust in your defense, albeit they played a pretty good game. But of course, they're at home. They're going to go down and they're going to score. It was just right there for the taking in the script. I'm so sick of it. I'm tired of this UCF team being led by Gus Malzahn. I don't want to see it anymore. It's just painful to watch. Rant over.
Time to move on, Justin. He's not the guy.
He's not the guy. I see why Auburn moved on. They gambled, and so far they've lost, but still.
Well, they were losing anyway, so.
Let's talk about the bandwagon team I'm on. Indiana, guys. Indiana
Kurt
runs over
Cignetti, let's
Nebraska.
go, baby.
Let's go, Hoosiers. 56-7 over Nebraska. They had no answer for these guys. Google me. I win. Kirk Cignetti, Coach of the Year, still on the train. They get game day this week against Washington. The Huskies are not the team they were last year. New leadership, completely new roster. How do we think that's going to go? Well, actually,
they're going to beat them.
Don't answer that just yet because we've got our parlay coming up here. So we're going to move on here. Clemson continues to be a battery ram, beating UVA 48-31. Now, this seems to be the best win they've had so far, is it not?
Agreed.
Yep, I think so.
And just seeing as where the ACC is right now, you've got SMU, which is ranked. You've got Miami, who's ranked, but they haven't played anybody. And Syracuse is solid, sure. Florida State, we all know the story with them. I'm not going to pile too much on the Seminoles fans. They've taken enough of it. And Georgia Tech, up and down, sure. But, yeah, overall, Joe, if you had to pick today, Clemson or Miami, who do you like in a head-on-head matchup in the ACC title game? Who are you taking?
I'm taking Clemson because I picked them at the beginning of the year to win the ACC. I just think they've improved significantly over the year so far. Defense is stout. Offense is starting to click. Miami has some holes on their team, and they're starting to get very lucky when it comes to some of these more recent games. I think ultimately in a championship setting, that's where Dabo shines. So I got Clemson.
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I think the same thing. I think Miami's gone down a number of times and been able to come back. If they do that against Clemson, they're dead. Like you can't do that. So Miami's impressed me early in the season, but especially some of these games. I mean, epic comebacks against Cal, but like you shouldn't be down that much against Cal.
Not to mention
I think
horrible we're seeing.
Exactly. So I think Clemson, after getting punched in the mouth by Georgia, which I loved because I hate Dabo, has been quietly becoming one of the best teams in the country here that still, like we say every week, no one's really talking about, So, yeah, I think as of now, if they played like this week or next week, I think Clemson would beat Miami.
They're just going about their business.
And I hate to say it.
Russ, your thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a great matchup, but I do like I think Miami's offense can hang with just about anybody, but I just don't trust their defense.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see that. Justin, I'll give you a little praise for UCF. At least you're only like the third or fourth team in Florida. You're not the last team in Florida. I don't know about that. Maybe FAU and FIU are better, but hey, you're better in Florida State right now. So take that W.
At least that. I'm glad you see silver lining here, Russ. But as long as number one for Miami is healthy, Cam Ward, they always have a chance to win. The guy is the Jokic of college football. He just doesn't care because it's so easy for him. Just
It's also like
casually sitting there, not even hopping up and down. Just sees a statue there, looks around. But basically, that's how every Miami possession has gone.
He will be in New York at the end of the year. That's for sure. He is.
Oh, 1,000%.
He is carrying Miami as far as he can drag them.
I thought you were talking about the Giants.
The Giants.
Well, I mean, he could be at this time next year.
I mean, could.
Dude, Daniel Jones is the guy, dude. Come on, bro.
He beat the
He's
Seahawks
legend.
somehow.
I mean, shoot, how's it going? It could be the Jets, too. You know, how it's going right now as well.
We'll take him at the Cowboys. We'll take him. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, give
He's
Dak
from
65
Texas.
and put him on the bench.
Yeah, I don't care. Fuck it.
LSU clobbers Arkansas in Fayetteville 34-10. Like I said, team that you don't want to see right now, the Tigers. Well, they're no longer coached by Ed Orgeron, so they're no longer the Tigers. They're the Tigers. Well, depends on how Brian Kelly actually says it, because he's known to turn on his Southern accent at times, right, guys?
Oh, yeah. Family.
He just wants some crawfish down there.
All right. Going down here. South Carolina bounces back. Russ, shut your ears with a 35-9 road win at Oklahoma. The Sooners are just in no man's land at this point, I feel. Russ, your thoughts as a Sooner supporter?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. The Venerable hasn't looked great.
He can't even talk.
I mean, like, my sister went to OU, and I will always, like, root for him, but
That's why I said Sooner supporter.
I'll support. Yeah, I'll support it. I mean, they're just kind of in a turnover. It's not looking good, but
he's a defensive coach, and his teams always get shelled.
It's not looking great. I mean, you're getting the first year of the SEC, so I mean, and both your quarterbacks, you got a freshman, and then the other Jackson Arnold not looking great. So we'll see. I don't think we'd assume maybe Texas was a little different than both these teams come in and dominate the SEC right off the bat. They probably get their lumps. Texas obviously made the top four last year and made the college football playoff. So they still have a lot of those players still there, which probably is the reason why Texas is so successful. Oklahoma's not, but just the turnover, you know, you look guys in and out. I think Venerable will do it. I mean, I think Georgia, in my opinion, I think Georgia might have poked a couple holes in Texas's offense, because the one thing I will say is I like that left tackle from Texas was getting used and abused by Georgia's defense, which they will see a lot in the SEC. And then if they, you know, end up, which we all believe, making the top, you know, the 12, whatever they're calling it this year, you'll see a lot of those defenses. And as we all see, Quinn Ewers is a statue back there. So will we see Arch a little more because he is more mobile, like they were trying to do? Because I mean, you're going to see more of those defenses week in and week out. I mean, Georgia's on a different level, but still, you're going to see more of those guys in the SEC.
Also, I don't understand. You put him in for like, what, 6 pass attempts, and then you go back to Ewers? Like, why the hell even do it, dude? Like, I don't know. It just screamed desperation to me. Like, Sark was like, oh, crap, we're getting absolutely destroyed. I have to do something. And then Manning, he had a couple of good plays with his legs, but he didn't look good. He looked overwhelmed as hell. So that worries me a little bit. Like, herky-jerky mid-game. Like, bro, you're like the number one team in the country. Like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, Pete, you're so right. It was definitely a desperation move. And then
Totally.
to then go back just emphasizes that exponentially. I know that Ewers is the veteran. He's the guy that you basically spend a ton of money to bring back to from Ohio State. But you might as well ride with Manning. You made the decision.
Exactly.
If you remember, at the tail end of that first half, Georgia was beating the shit out of Texas. Like it was a one-sided game there for a minute. So yeah, it was a desperation play. I guess Sark's thought was, I have nothing to lose, so might as well put in the guy everyone wants to see.
The way I saw it was he needed a spark, but at the same time, you also put in a vote of no confidence in your quarterback and no commitment.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sit well in a locker room.
This wasn't like Saban switching from Hurts to Tua in the title game where Tua comes in and dominates and can sling it and all that stuff. Like that immediately was not the case. Like he made a couple good plays with his legs, but even for being so good on his legs, that Georgia defense was getting to him in the pocket. Like he couldn't even get out of the pocket sometimes. So I don't know. I just didn't like it. It screamed desperation to me. And to me, it was like he even realized like, oh shit, Georgia is freaking good. Like,
I mean, I might be mistaken. I wasn't 100% locked into the game. I was flipping back and forth. I had my Yankees on, game clinching, game 5. So I was going back and forth. But didn't Arch throw a pick? If I'm not mistaken, didn't he throw an interception?
I believe he had one, but I know he only went like 2 for 6, and he made some plays on it with his legs. But I thought after watching the first half, Ewers was missing throws that I thought if you just stuck with him, he's going to hit him. He was like missing them high or missing them low. He was a little inaccurate, and that caused them not to score points because it was always – I mean, they had like two picks in the first half off Beck, and it's like, okay, you think you're going to at least get a field goal. They couldn't even get in field goal range because he was missing easy throws, which I just assumed was you haven't played all season. Arch has been playing a little bit. Biggest game of the season. Maybe he's got a little nerves. Like maybe just let him settle down. Don't switch away from him. I don't know. I just didn't like the call in general, like switching away from him. I thought he would have been able to figure it out because the guys were open. He was just missing them like a foot or two this way, a foot or two that way. It wasn't like so egregious where he was like, literally getting sacked all the time or fumbling. Like I thought he would have figured it out. So the switch to Manning to me was just desperation, and I just didn't understand it.
And I don't understand, too, the play calling. I remember when they were trailing, they're in the red zone, and they're running a wheel route against Georgia's defense. Like, what are you doing? Don't be throwing anywhere lateral. Get in the end zone if you want any chance to win. But no,
I thought Sark was an offensive genius. Come on.
They just don't have confidence in either guy to be the guy right now. And I think a large part of that has to do with Manning's presence there. If he wasn't there, this is Ewers' job, no question. And nobody else behind him is going to come in the game unless he's hurt. But the fact that Arch is there, and we've seen how good he can be against lesser competition, then some of the donors are going to say, hey, we want to see more Manning. And unfortunately, the donors, the boosters, they are the ones who really call the shots behind closed doors.
And Justin, final point on that, not to belabor it, but that's exactly the point. He hasn't played anyone in this competition in his entire career. Like, he's balled out against people that suck, but, like, what's his biggest win? Not against a ranked opponent, I don't think. Like, especially not a team that's, like in the top 10. So to me, it was just like, dude, like, what are you doing? So that's it. I don't know. I just didn't like it.
Mm-hmm. But let's get back speaking your language for a second here. Notre Dame rolled Georgia Tech 31-13.
Yeah.
I know that NIU loss isn't looking any better. In fact, it's looking a little worse. But what's the outlook on the Irish here, Joe?
I mean, they just have to win out. It's simple as that. They have to win out if they want to be in the 12th team. Since we don't have a conference championship, that's the only way. I was looking up. NIU is 4-3, so I mean, it's still a terrible loss, but it's not like they're 1-5 or whatever. So
correct.
It's they have to win out.
Yeah.
I don't know if they
went
out, dude. I don't even I'm sorry, I'm rooting for them. I don't know if even if they went out, their strength schedule is not as strong enough. I mean, SC's looking worse and worse. And that's
they thought they were going to be the big dogs in the Big Ten. They're basically Rutgers.
I mean, that's the best remaining game they got on the schedule.
Not to make an easy segue for Justin here, but Notre Dame plays a ranked Navy team that's undefeated, so that is ranked. So it adds to the resume.
And a currently ranked Army team as well.
Undefeated.
Right.
Damn, you got me, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And here we go. Let's
My-
roll right
my-
into those parlay picks, shall we? Notre Dame
Let's
and
do it. Let's
Navy.
do it.
Notre Dame Navy is actually happening at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Notre Dame is a 12-point favorite, 52 over under, with Notre Dame minus 500 money line, Navy plus 360. Let's start with Russ. It's at your Jets house. So how about
Well,
that?
Pete, this might make you happy. With playing probably on the worst turf in all of college, all of football, and Jet Life Stadium. So Riley Leonard could tear his Achilles or something, because we seem to have a lot of those happen on our field. I knocked on wood for you, boys.
Thank you.
But yeah, I'm gonna go. Let's go Navy covering, but Notre Dame getting the win in the under.
Okay, Russ. Sorry, Pete.
I just went.
Yeah. Thank you, Russ.
Yeah. So, I think the key to success with Riley Leonard is having him run. And he had 2 touchdowns last week on the ground. He had no touchdowns in the air, even though he did throw it 30 times. I think the key with him is to run it. And I think against the 2 service academies we're going to play, granted, some of them have been throwing it more than they have in the past. I think we got to run. We got to run the damn ball with him. He's very good on the ground. Keep doing that. If we do that, I think we'll win this game. Notre Dame's played in Yankee Stadium, not Yankee Stadium. We played in Yankee Stadium, and we played in multiple stadiums on the East Coast of the Shamrock Series all the time. So to me, this is like a normal neutral site game. We're used to it, and I think we're going to win. We're going to cover. It's going to hit the over, and then I'm taking Notre Dame money line.
So I know this rivalry, Joe, is always in a neutral site, Notre Dame and Navy. How do you feel about this year?
I mean, I feel like, you have to prepare for the team, not where you're playing. It's just your typical neutral site. Again, Notre Dame travels everywhere across the country, whether it's a college stadium or an NFL stadium. They're used to it. It's nothing new to them. I do think, though, the storyline of both Navy and Army being undefeated still is one of the greatest stories in college football this year right now. Because, again, we look at them as punching bags, essentially, just because these guys are not, 5-star athletes, but, they're about to go do something incredible after they graduate and serve and fight for this country. Ultimately, though, this is a football game. I think Notre Dame is just a better team. I think they have better athletes. So I'm taking Notre Dame money line. I'm going to take the under, but I'm gonna give Navy the 12 points. I think it will be a close game, tough game. And I agree with Pete. I think Notre Dame needs to just run the ball and offense as their better defense.
And one thing I would say also, too, is normally, I mean, the Army game, whenever we play Army or Navy, or whenever we play them both, we never overlook it. It's a huge game for us, dating all the way back to World War II and all that stuff, kept the college open and all that. And we almost always beat them, almost always. But this year, they have played so good, they might save Notre Dame's season if we can beat both of them. So thank both of them for being so good this year. That's all I'm going to say.
Well,
When I look at
Joe, you guys play Army?
Yeah, we play Army and Navy this year.
Yeah, we play both.
I didn't know Army had a football team.
They're
To quote
undefeated.
Navy football coach.
Lee Corso because he hates Army.
No, he was on Pat McAfee, and they said something. He's like, I didn't know they played football at Army.
Ha!
I just hope he's joking and that's not his dementia coming through. We love you, Coach. You guys are not going to like this pick because I do feel like Navy could pull some sort of surprise here, but at the same time, they haven't really played the competition like Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a team that they're not quite prepared for, but anything can happen. Notre Dame has looked great, but they've also looked really bad at times. Navy has looked great all year, but they haven't played the teams that Notre Dame has played, is what I'm trying to say. I think this is really a 50-50 call. I could see Riley Leonard screwing up, throwing a couple picks. if he does decide to throw the ball. One thing we haven't mentioned is both Army and Navy have learned to throw a forward pass, that they are just letting it loose like a cannon nowadays. So I do feel like, gosh, I was going to pick Navy just because my great uncle went there. Thank you for your service, Boo. I guess Notre Dame will win by 1 point. So I'll give Navy the points here. And I'll also take the under, just like Joe, Notre Dame money line. But this is like a big wake-up call to the Irish to say, don't overlook these guys. You got possibly a better Army team coming to town in a couple weeks, and they've got 2 weeks to prepare for you. So not just if Notre Dame wants to make the playoff. Marcus Freeman, you want to prove you deserve this job, you better make that playoff. Am I right, guys?
Yep, especially the third year. The third year is
Yeah,
always
pretty much.
for Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. So Notre Dame, we're watching you. We're always watching, especially these guys. Next up, the game we were just talking about here, Washington at Indiana. My Hoosiers this year, I'm not actually an Indiana fan. I'm just a bandwagon, but I love what they've got going here. Kirk Cignetti, coach of the year. IU -6.5 at home. The over-under here is 53. IU -250. UW +205. I believe this is the first time College Game Day has ever come to Bloomington. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Russ, who wins and why?
Well, Justin, I was kind of laughing because you're like Joe Pete, you're not going to like this. I'm like, hey, Justin's going to have some cojones. He's going to call the upset, and he goes, they're going to win by 1. I'm like, Justin, I was having high hopes for you, buddy.
I was almost about to.
I was like, go for it. What are you going to lose? Are you gonna put money on the game? I mean, that'd be a ballsy move. I'd respect it if you called it and then threw $50 on it, and then I'd be like, hey, guys, got some balls.
I just feel like Army's got the better chance for the upset than Navy does because they've looked slightly better.
But I'm sticking on the Indiana train. Like we've said, Washington, new coach, lost a lot of players. So I think they cover. I think it's going to be a lot of excitement in Bloomington. So, and the over, we see they can score points.
Pete, keep it going.
Yeah, I think the same thing, especially with that defense. I mean, given Dylan Raiola 3 interceptions last week and blowing them out, I think Indiana's a powerhouse, man. And I can't root against Kurt Cignetti until he loses. So I'm taking Indiana to cover everything and win outright. Obviously, they're favored, but everything, basically over, money line, cover.
Not a stat correction, but a stat reinforcement. Yes, this is Game Day's first ever time in Bloomington. Coach Corso back home where he started his coaching career, I believe.
Oh, that's so sick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you love to see it, and I love the Hoosiers here. They're going to show the country that they belong on the national stage here against Washington. Again, not the same Huskies we saw last year, but give me Indiana to cover. I'm definitely taking the over because Curtis Rourke, he can score. This defense is not to be messed with either. They can take the ball away very easily. And give me the Hoosiers money line here. Joe.
Yeah, this is an easy pick. Indiana's the real deal. How easily they controlled Nebraska. And I honestly thought it was going to be a shootout. Washington is not the same team. So I'm Indiana all the way. And I'm taking the over. I do think there will be points.
And just to note.
QB's hurt.
What's up?
The Indiana QB is hurt. I don't know if he's questionable.
That's interesting. But do we feel that Washington has enough to keep up with them if he is hurt?
Probably not, but I mean,
you never know.
Yeah,
but
I think Indiana still rolls, and their defense is good.
I think Indiana's team is the real deal. I think that if I think the QB will try and play unless he can't even get on the field or throw the ball. But if that's the case, I'm sure this week they're preparing the second QB. So I think Indiana still rolls.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, Austin, Tavon Jackson, who went in, he threw 7 for 8 for almost 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? Is he the backup or is he the starter? He's the backup, right?
He's the backup. Curtis Rourke is the starter.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, he came in and threw almost 100% passer rating for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think they'll be okay.
And here's an interesting note, too. after this game, if they survive, look at their schedule. They've got they've got Michigan State on the road, Michigan at home, who does not look good at all. Then they've got their only real test going to Columbus to face Ohio State. And then after that, they get their rivalry against Purdue, who has looked lifeless all year pretty much. So they've got a certain date circle, but it's up to them. Can they not overlook the competition in front of them before that date? That'll be a big test today and as they face the Michigan teams in the next couple of weeks. So this is a veteran team in here because we have a lot of transfers coming in. So I feel like they literally could go into Columbus undefeated and game day will be there. And that could be the most interesting Indiana-Ohio State game of our lifetimes, honestly.
I mean, 1,000%, man.
And coming up here, we're going to do a group of 5 game, first time in a while. Boise State going to Las Vegas to face UNLV, the Running Rebels. Boise State's a -3 favorite here on the road. Over-under is 65.5. BSU -142. UNLV +120. Now, Joe, no quarterback, no problem, we said earlier this year about UNLV. Then they lose to Syracuse, but then they seem to be right on track. How do you see this game playing out?
I think this is similar way. I think until someone can stop Boise State's running game, Boise State's winning. Even though it is at UNLV and they have looked good, I just think Boise State's going to just control the ball and run the ball. So I have Boise State. I'm taking them with the points, and I'm taking the over.
It just seems like the year of the Broncos again. When you add in Ashton Jeanty, literally they almost upset Oregon. A last-second field goal is the only difference between now and then an undefeated team and Ashton Jeanty. Could they have made the top 4? Could they have made an exception of the rule? Who knows? Boise State rolls here in Vegas. I'll take them to cover. I'll take the over, and I'll go with the Boise State money line. Russ.
Yeah, I'm with the same. That's all I got to say. Lots of points.
Yeah, same here. And UNLV is giving up a decent amount of points to schools that they probably shouldn't be giving that many points up to. I mean, 34 to Utah State. They lose by 3, 44 to 41 to Syracuse. I just think Boise State's going to be too much of a running powerhouse, pretty much everything. So I'm taking Boise State to cover everything. Same thing.
You see how they treated now the number 1 team in the nation. Now let's see how they treat this team from Las Vegas. Big comparison, right? But our game of the week here, we got a big one here, Doozy. This game always produces some interesting results, but this time it's not being played after Thanksgiving because we have LSU at Texas A&M happening right now. We all know what happens after Thanksgiving now that Texas is in the SEC. But A&M here at home is a 3-point favorite. 53.5 is the over-under. A&M -162 and LSU +136. Let me kick us off here with this. 100% smashing that over. That is going to go easily to 60 or 70 points. These two teams know how to score. Garrett Nussmeier, Russ told us in the group chat earlier this week, got to love him. He can play. These LSU receivers, LSU I always consider as wide receiver U. I'm going to call the upset here. I know Brian Kelly in big games isn't always reliable, but something about this team, they just are on a mission ever since that USC loss week 1. They've had some close calls in South Carolina. Mike Elko's looked great. He's definitely a contender for Coach of the Year, but I'm going to have to go with LSU money line, smashing that over, and then Tigers to cover. Russ.
Yeah, well, I'm going to clarify everybody because they're not in the group chat, only us 4 are in there. Was the great Lee Corso, who I think is, as great he is, I think his time is up with game day. It's just getting a little too much. He said Garnet Nussmeier. He couldn't say Garrett. So, I mean, that was kind of what I was just like, Lee, like, you're a legend.
That's a common mistake.
Yeah, you're a legend, but like I don't like seeing him. I don't like fumbling up there all the time. And game day comes on here at 9. Unlike you guys, it comes on at 6 a.m. So I'm good and ready. I'm sending them out, and I'm like, no, why is no one responding? What the heck? Game day's on. Let's go, boys. But I'm with you. I think think it's gonna be a close game, Justin. I got A&M close, so I think LSU covers. A&M maybe 1 to 2 points, late field goal in the over.
Love it, Russ. Pete.
Yeah, I think Brian Kelly's going to get this done. I mean, the team's kind of rolling right now. It's only 3 points. I think LSU is going to put up a lot of points. So is Texas A&M. So I'm on the same train as you, Justin. What time is the game on Saturday? Do we know? Is it night game? Obviously, probably.
Let me take a look. I want to say that this is under the night.
7:30 night game.
Okay, so 6:30 Texas time. Okay, so yeah, it's going to be pretty electric. And I think LSU's been playing really good. I mean, so I'm going to take Brian Kelly on this one. Pains me to do it, but I also not a huge Texas A&M fan. So yeah, I'm taking LSU all the way and over.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, before you start, I want to ask you: is Game Day making a mistake by not being at this game?
Making a mistake. I mean, they were already at Texas A&M at the beginning of the season. Are they going to go back, or are they going to go to somewhere where they've never been before? And I think they've set a precedent of going places they've never been before. They went to Cal. That was pretty cool. So why not go to Bloomington? I do think, though, that potentially the LSU Texas A&M game will be better, like viewed wise, but that's here nor there. Go somewhere new that, gives more colleges exposure and the experience of college game day. But again, I think this game, the over is an easy one. It's definitely going to take the over. But I think ultimately, when you look at these two teams, LSU, Texas A&M, I agree. Brian Kelly has this team functioning and running, after that SC game. And I would honestly agree with you that they would win if it was at LSU. If it was at Death Valley, I would definitely go all LSU. But since it's at Texas A&M, because I know the team that Mike Elko is going to bring, it's going to be stout. And it's at Texas A&M. I'm going to go with the home team here, straightforward. Texas A&M. And I'm going to give Texas A&M as well the -3.
All right, there you have it. Good picks, guys. Now for our upset cover another game segment. I'm going to call the upset here. Texas Tech is a 5-point underdog over TCU. But I'm also watching Illinois at Oregon. Potential upset alert here because we know that Illinois, Brett Bielema team, big physical team, knows how to run the ball, but he's low-key got a guy who can throw the ball too, and Luke Altmaier. We've seen Oregon get pushed to the limit, but just because you're the number one team, how are you going to respond now that you're number one? Last time they were number one, it lasted all 1 week where they lost to Stanford on a field goal at home. So that's why I've got my eyes there in Eugene. Petey, how about you? You're on mute.
Why you go, Joe?
I got you. Don't worry about it, boys. So for my upset of the week, I'm going to take Boston College. They're a 6.5-point underdog against Louisville, but they're also at home. So I think Boston College can get that done and win that game. They can win that game outright. And then for my cover of the week, I'm going to take Georgia Tech covering 9.5 against Virginia Tech. They are on the road, but I think they can get it done. We just beat them, but I think they're a decent team. So I think that they're going to cover that one. And then, my game of the week, obviously, I think is going to be just the one I'm most excited about is LSU versus Texas A&M. That's the one I'm really going to be watching.
Joe.
Yeah, my upset, Pete just kind of mentioned it. I'm taking Georgia Tech to beat Virginia Tech. I feel Georgia Tech is a physical team. They run the ball well. I think, just Notre Dame made some plays that, that's what this game comes down to, just simply making some plays when your team needs it. And I think Georgia Tech will do that against Virginia Tech. Game I'm watching, I'm that Illinois-Oregon game is definitely an intriguing one, too, just polar opposite systems. I also think, obviously the LSU Texas A&M game is going to be probably the most entertaining. But again, I will also probably be watching the Indiana game just because go Hoosiers, join the bandwagon.
And Russ, close us out.
Well, you know that whoever had those upset rules last year was a little crazy. So thank you, whoever took over this year. So I'm going to take BYU at 1.5, getting a 1.5 over UCF. Now, I think I'm taking Nebraska to cover. I think they're going to have a little bounce back game not beating Ohio State, but I think Matt Rule has a little bounce back game and they cover the spread. I think it's 26. I want to say. 25 and a half. 25.
Yeah, 25. I almost picked that one, Russ, but I don't know. After getting their ass beat, I just don't know,
I think Matt Rule's going to have them going, so maybe a 14-point game. I mean, I'll be watching a lot of games, Saturdays for college football, boys. You don't really leave the couch. So I'm just going to crack my beers, watch that Notre Dame Navy game.
And the World Series.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be watching. That's the number one thing I'll be watching. This is October baseball, boys. Let's get real. But we're on college football right now, Pete. So Illinois, Oregon.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I also want to see how Alabama bounces back against Missouri.
Me too. I'm actually interested in that one because I feel like it could go two ways.
Side note. Probably first time ever, Vanderbilt in the top 25.
Watch out, son.
In season, a long time. Yes, I think since 2004, maybe 2007. Not sure. All right, guys. We'll love that. Let's check in real quickly on the Heisman race. Well, Ashton Genty was on a bye week, so we have to focus on Dylan Gabriel. He was welcomed back into the Heisman race a couple weeks ago. He stays in that upper echelon with a solid game on the road at Purdue. Cam Ward still killing it. 4 touchdowns on the road at Louisville. Travis Hunter played the first half against Arizona, blowout win, but he sat the second half. Watch that shoulder injury. That could be interesting. And as mentioned before, hello, Dylan Sampson. Interesting fact about him. He has the most touchdowns through 7 games in SEC history on the ground. 17. Very impressive so far, kid. But I think dropped out for good at this point. Jalen Milroe and Quinn Ewers. So, all right, guys, look, Jalen, you got 2 losses. You throw the game ceiling pick, you're out of the competition for me. Ewers, he's just missed too much time, and he's come back, and he's looked okay, but not the dominant player we know he can be. So, anybody want to chime in here?
He got benched. Your coach, I mean, if you're going to be a Heisman, you don't get benched. Or maybe week 1, and then you bounce back, and then – but, yeah, I think his chances are down. I think it's pretty much the Boise State kid and Travis Hunter. And I pretty much think that's how it's going to be. I mean, Travis Hunter's a stud, man. I'd be shocked if he does not win this thing, even if the Boise kid is rolling. I mean, offense and defense, I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, come on.
That shoulder injury, though, looks pretty bad.
I know. That's true.
It'll be interesting to see, what how he does this week. But yeah, no, I think ultimately the top 3 right there. It's interesting that besides Travis Hunter, there's not another wide receiver, 2 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, and then Travis Hunter, the hybrid. So I mean, it's an interesting group this year. But even Idle, I think Genty is he's so far ahead just because he's.
Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, and just because he's doing some Barry Sanders stuff. Like this is pretty wild.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say also, too, is this is the first year they've ever had this playoff format, too. So, should we even care about the Heisman until we get to the playoffs to kind of see how these teams play against better competition almost? I feel like that could, throw a wrench in this entire thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But maybe one of these guys goes on a run and just, balls out and, makes it 2-3 more rounds, has more games and more tape and is more clutch. So, I don't know. I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm like, does the Heisman even matter until we get to the playoffs?
But is the Heisman a regular season award or is it a?
That's what I was going to ask. I don't know.
Season award.
Okay, so all these playoffs games don't fucking matter.
It would 06 if it wasn't a regular season award. Let's get real.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Kind of sucks. Don't you want to see the guys play the best competition?
Anyways, but I mean, if you're going full slate, Vince Young was the best player in college football.
Yeah.
Oh, hands down.
Mm-hmm. And that absolutely had to have added some extra fuel to that USC-Texas game with him losing out on the Heisman to Reggie Bush.
But what Reggie Bush did that year was insane as well. So, I mean, it was like 1A, 1B in my eyes for that year.
Mm-hmm. That was a great year of college football, but we may be shaping up for another great year here with the 12-team playoff. We're going to wrap it up here with our cheers for the week. I'm going to kick it off here with Mizzou quarterback Brady Quinn is my cheer of the week. Man got knocked out of the game against Auburn, went to the hospital, returned back from the hospital, re-entered the game, and rallied Mizzou past Auburn in the fourth quarter. Talk about grown man of the week, Brady Cook. Glad you're okay, man. Great job.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Joe.
I'm just going to do a cheers to another great Saturday. A lot of expectation again, a lot of great games. And ultimately, they all were entertaining. They were all great games to watch and enjoy. Like Russ, I was stuck on the couch and I didn't really leave. So, that's kind of the type of Saturday that you want. So cheers to another great college football Saturday.
Russ, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to give a little love to my my beautiful state where I went to college. Congrats, NDSU, for winning the the battle for the Dakota Marker game over SDSU. All right.
How can I forget?
Yeah, Mountain West. Let's give them a call. Get SDSU and NDSU in the FBS.
I agree on that statement.
Oh, yeah.
And Petey, close us out.
Yeah, amazing slate of college football. I'm just going to give it to Georgia for dominating and humbling Texas. They're not as good as we all thought they were. And for some reason, I'm happy to see that. I don't know, especially with their fans bitching, suck one, you got to beat Georgia. Georgia's still the best. Okay. And then also cheers, New York versus LA, amazing World Series coming up. So we got amazing football this weekend and a bunch of amazing October baseball that all of us actually care about, which is the first time in a while. So hell yeah.
Yeah, I care about baseball in the minor days, but it's got a lot more bigger meaning this year.
Oh, totally.
12th time, I will admit. So, first time since 1981. So it's pretty historic. Rivalry.
Yankees lead 9-3 at the moment, right?
What?
Do the Yankees lead 9-2 or what is it? 7?
Yeah, it's something like that. The last one the Dodgers won was in '91, but that's the last time they played.
81.
Yeah, the 81. Excuse me. I said 81 the first time. Then I went to 91. So, but yeah, it's very lopsided. But
two guys hitting 50+ home runs. I'm hoping
guys 50+.
We will see a bunch of runs and not a pitchers, somehow a battle of the pitchers, which I that's also cool, but I want to see runs. So I'm excited to see some home runs.
Mm-hmm. And with all that being said,
tune in tomorrow, boys. I'll be going all off it tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific for all you SoCal boys. On deck here on FTSN, I'll be going off a lot of good stuff. I'll probably be getting a little negative. I get negative about my football teams, all right? About my baseball team. My football team, I get really negative about. I'm a Jets fan. I'm negative. I'm a negative sports fan. I'm not.
Aaron Rodgers is the guy.
You figured that out.
I'm not an optimistic sports fan here, boys. I'm a pessimistic sports fan.
Well, Russ, the only thing you better talk about is that pitcher's duel between Harvard Westlake versus Orange Lutheran. So I'll be listening to that.
Joe, I coached at Orange Lutheran, so.
Is that Flaherty versus Cole?
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah.
Hey.
What was it, 2008? I think he graduated. Cole was Olu in 08. Flaherty might have been 10. So it might have been.
Yeah, he's a little younger, I think.
He might have been 2010.
Well, with all that being said, we may or may not be on the air next week because we'll all be glued to our TVs watching the World Series. But thank you for tuning in for another great episode here of Touchdown in Paradise here in the Fins Talk Sports Network. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and always tune in to us here. I'm Justin.
I'm Russ.
I'm Pete.
I'm Joe.
And we're out of here. See you when we see you.